need to talk about the incredibly complex dynamic unfolding in the physical therapy rooms of Garland Memorial Hospital. If you have been following the emotional roller coaster that is Eva Thomas's recovery, you know that her journey has been nothing short of a medical and relational miracle. Surviving a massive liver transplant is one thing, but receiving that life-saving organ from her bitter half-sister, Catherine Cat Richardson, is an entirely different level of soap opera. Now, Ava is on the mend, and she is currently under the watchful expert care of Dr. Kial Rollins for her physical therapy. But as we all know, physical healing is only half the battle. The mental and emotional hurdles are proving to be just as daunting, especially when you factor in the suffocating dynamics of the Richardson-Thomas family tree. During a recent highly revealing therapy session, Eva opened up to Kial about a struggle that many trauma survivors face, the desperate, clawing need to return to normalcy. Eva admitted that she is missing her work at the hospital terribly. For a young woman who has spent her entire life fighting to prove her worth, striving to step out of the shadows and secure her place in the world, being confined to a bed and a recovery schedule feels like a prison sentence. She is a fighter. She is used to pushing herself to the absolute limit. And right now, she feels that her father, Ted Richardson, is being entirely too overprotective. She feels smothered by his constant hovering and his refusal to let her spread her wings and get back to the daily grind. But here's where the narrative takes a brilliantly logical turn. Kial, acting not just as her physical therapist, but as a grounded voice of reason, completely agrees with Ted. Kial doesn't sugarcoat the reality of the situation. He looks Eva in the eye and reminds her of the sheer, unimaginable horror that her father just lived through. Can you even begin to imagine the psychological torment of having two of your children in the operating room at the exact same time, with both of their lives hanging by the thinnest of threads? That is a parent's absolute worst nightmare. Ted had to pace those sterile hospital hallways, agonizing over the very real possibility that he could lose both Ava and Kat in one fell swoop. Kial firmly points out that Ted is operating at maximum emotional capacity. His overprotectiveness isn't about controlling Eva. It is a trauma response. It is the desperate grip of a father who came dangerously close to burying his child. Kial's advice to Eva is sharp, necessary, and profoundly smart. He warns her not to overestimate her health based purely on how she feels in the moment. A liver transplant is a massive, body-altering trauma. Just because the incision is healing and her energy is returning does not mean her internal systems are ready to handle the grueling stress of a full-time job. Kial insists that Eva needs more therapy sessions, more rest, and a healthy dose of patience. He validates her joy over the miraculous new bond she shares with Kat, a sisterhood that Eva herself admits she never thought was possible, but he demands that she respect her body's timeline, not her ambition's timeline. But let's be real for a second. Will Eva actually listen? She is a fiercely independent woman, and sitting at home staring at the walls is driving her slowly insane. The temptation to put on her scrubs and march back into the hospital might just overpower Kial's sound medical advice. And if Eva decides to take matters into her own hands and return to work prematurely, we all know exactly what is going to happen. It won't just be a medical risk. It will be the catalyst for a Category 5 hurricane named Leslie Thomas. Let's play out this highly probable, utterly chaotic scenario. Imagine Eva showing up for a shift, pushing herself too hard, and perhaps feeling a wave of dizziness. Who's going to find out first? Her mother. And Leslie Thomas does not simply react to situations, she detonates them. If Leslie catches wind that Eva is back at work, or God forbid, if Eva actually faints from exhaustion, Leslie will not blame Eva's stubbornness. Oh, absolutely not. Leslie will march straight into Garland Memorial, high heels clicking like a metronome of doom, and she will make a beeline for Dr. Kial Rollins. Can you picture the sheer audacity of this woman? Leslie would undoubtedly storm into the physical therapy wing and cause an absolute, unmitigated scene. She would point her perfectly manicured finger right at Kial's chest and demand that he take full responsibility for her daughter's condition. In Leslie's twisted narcissistic reality, Kial is the medical professional, which means he should have physically barred Eva from the premises. Leslie would start listing off a horrifying, catastrophic series of hypothetical tragedies. What if she collapsed and hit her head? What if her new liver fails because you didn't keep her in? What kind of incompetent therapist are you? She would weaponize Eva's fragile health to tear Kiel down in front of his colleagues and patients. For Kiel, this confrontation would be a massive, eye-opening epiphany. Up until this point, Kiel has only heard stories about Leslie's erratic, manipulative behavior, mostly from his new romantic interest, Nicole Dupree. But coming face to face with the hurricane herself, that changes everything. As Leslie screams and hurls baseless accusations, Kiel would likely stand there, maintaining his professional composure, but internally, his mind would be racing. He would suddenly realize the absolute, suffocating nightmare that Ted Richardson has been living in for years. Kiel would look at this shrieking, unreasonable woman and feel a profound wave of pity for Ted. Co-parenting with a woman who uses every crisis as a stage for her own theatrics is a level of exhaustion Kiel can hardly fathom. Kiel would firmly but calmly correct her, reiterating that he gave Eva strict medical advice to stay home, and that Eva is a grown woman capable of making her own choices. But logic has never stopped Leslie Thompson. This is where the scene would inevitably escalate, requiring intervention. Either Eva herself, mortified and exhausted, would have to step in and yell at her mother to stop, or Ted would come rushing down the hallway to defuse the bomb. And if Ted arrives, watch closely, because this is where Leslie's true psychological manipulation shines. The moment Ted steps between her and Kiel, Leslie's ferocious anger would instantly evaporate, replaced by the fragile, weeping persona of a terrified mother. She would immediately use the chaos she created as an excuse to lean heavily on Ted. She would clutch his arm, sobbing about how she just can't lose her baby girl, using Eva's health as a convenient tether to keep Ted emotionally bound to her. And how would the rest of the hospital react to this predictable performance? Let's pan the camera over to Shanice Johnson and Nicole Dupree. Shanice, who is currently glowing with the security of Ted's recent heartfelt confession of love, would likely watch Leslie's desperate clinging with a mixture of pity and severe annoyance. Shanice knows she has Ted's heart, so Leslie's theatrics are just a boring, repetitive sideshow. Nicole, on the other hand, would be watching her former nemesis verbally abuse her new boyfriend, Kiel. The eye rolls from Nicole and Shanice would be absolutely legendary. They have both suffered through the Leslie show for far too long, and seeing her recycle the same manipulative tactics would only solidify their disdain for her. But the real tragedy in this hypothetical explosion is Eva. Imagine the crushing guilt she would feel. Eva already carries the heavy emotional burden of Kat's sacrifice, and now her simple desire to reclaim her independence would result in her therapist being publicly harassed and her father being manipulated. Eva would watch her mother weaponize her recovery, and she would feel a deep, sickening sense of remorse for putting Kiel in the line of fire. Eva just wants to heal. She just wants her life back. But with a mother like Leslie, every step toward independence is treated like a personal betrayal or a catastrophic emergency. Here is the smart twist, the underlying truth that makes this dynamic so fascinating. Leslie's overprotective rage isn't actually about Eva's health. It is about control. As long as Eva is sick, as long as Eva is fragile, Leslie has a valid, unassailable reason to demand Ted's time, attention, and emotional support. If Eva fully recovers, goes back to work, and lives independently, Leslie loses her strongest bargaining chip. Kiel, being a highly observant medical professional, would undoubtedly see right through this toxic facade. He would realize that Leslie's panic is performative, designed to keep the family orbiting around her emotional needs, rather than focusing on Eva's actual physical recovery. So, what is the ultimate takeaway here? Kiel's advice to Eva is fundamentally sound. Respect the trauma your body has endured and respect the trauma your father has survived. But the looming shadow of Leslie Thomas means that Eva's recovery will never just be about physical therapy. It'll be a constant, grueling battle to assert her autonomy without triggering her mother's destructive theatrics. Will Eva find the strength to listen to Kiel and heal at her own pace? Or will the boredom drive her back to work, setting the stage for the ultimate hospital showdown? One thing is for certain. In Fairmont Crest, even a medical miracle comes with a heavy dose of collateral damage. Stay tuned, because this family dynamic is a ticking time bomb, just waiting for the right moment to explode.